All right. Welcome, everyone, to our CyberWise chat, whether you're here on the webinar or listening to us via the podcast. I'm Diana Graber, author of Raising Humans in a Digital World and founder of CyberWise and CyberCivics. Here, as always, with Dr. Pamela Rutledge, who is the director of the Media Psychology Research Center. Welcome, Pam. Nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
Today is our back to school special. We'll be talking about the 5 lessons kids need now. If you're with us live today, thank you. You'll be receiving an email from us tomorrow with a link to the lessons that we're talking about today. You're getting a lot. You're getting the lesson and a slideshow and stuff you can do with your kids. In addition to that, we have this really cool action guide. I hope you can see it with my weird video here. Am I holding it just right? It's so hard to do this.
It's disappearing. It's the disappearing action guide.
Hearing action guide, but you'll get a link to it. It's really cool. It's actually a guide of how you can implement these important lessons at every age and stage, things you can do with your kids. It's long, so it's great. So we hope that you enjoy it. All right, so today, we put a lot of time towards what the trending topics that we're going to talk about, and this one really rose to the top and seemed really important to address at the beginning of a school year. You guys read the headlines, you see the research. Parents are still really worried about devices and kids. That worry seems to be growing more the more time that we have devices in our world. So, for our part here at CyberCivics, we spend the summer updating our curriculum for middle schools. And so we're talking to teachers and principals and parents, and most of all students all year long. And honestly, these 5 lessons really rise to the top. But before we tell you what they are, I do want to say this. These lessons do not live in a silo. They are complex topics, and they're topics that need to be taught in a way that they make sense to kids in a big context of digital skills. So you'll probably hear a lot of terms out there, right? You hear digital citizenship, you hear internet safety, you hear media literacy. And what we like to do is put those all under a big umbrella that we call digital literacy because it just makes sense. So before we get started today, I really wanted Pam to set the stage for us. She wrote just a terrific blog post that you can find on the CyberCivic site that also has our download on it, by the way. But it really explains the research behind digital literacy. It's called, Pam, what is the blog post called?
I don't know. It's called why don't we use digital literacy as a solution to all of these problems that we're having? Not exactly all those words, but when Diana and I were having this conversation about what were the key skills and all that, it struck me that from a psychological point of view, it's very easy to get down in the weeds about, oh, we need to set privacy settings, or, oh, we need to triangulate information. And we lose sight of the larger psychological benefits of media literacy training or digital literacy training. These are not necessary to have media and technology to apply. These are life skills that cumulatively actually increase your child's self-esteem, self-efficacy, and well-being. And I was really surprised to see how many research studies there are showing that digital literacy is protective against things like body image and depression and all of these things that we worry about, too much screen time, all of these things that we worry about, that we try and target with individual band-aids rather than view this as a holistic picture. So I got very excited about making sure that parents and teachers know that this is really a holistic, improve your child's well-being, improve your child's skill set for life kind of thing.
Yeah, and it goes beyond screens. It goes to everything they do just to empower kids to have their own skills to manage themselves in a world that includes. So I think that's so important. All right, so we're going to jump right in and tell you what those skills are. Number one, okay, I love the little names. Number one is being a good time manager. And I think that everyone here would probably agree that the time kids spend with their screens rises up to the number one concern of everyone, parents, teachers, and even kids themselves who are like, I spend too much time on my screen. So how do we teach kids how to be a good time manager at that earliest ages that we're talking about today, those elementary school kids? How do you instill those skills starting then?
And how do you get them to think of themselves as a good time manager? I mean, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to name these things in ways that kids could own them, because that's what we really want. We don't want them to rely on you to tell them when to put the device down. We want them to, over time, develop that self-awareness so that they, in fact, are a good time manager. Now, to be fair, I'm not sure I'm a great time manager, but that's an entirely different issue. It's a work in progress for all of us, but
Right.
you have to start.
Yeah. So how do you start with that youngest group, Pam?
Well, I think for the youngest group, and we're not talking 2-year-olds here, we're really looking at elementary school, is that you want to start explaining what it means to have clear boundaries. And you can do that with some fun activities like how much fun can you have offline for 30 minutes? What would you do to make it a problem solving thing rather than say, you should put your darn device down? Start by being very positive. And that's one thing that we did talk about. All of these lessons, very important. Don't come in this in a way where your child is defensive, because nothing closes ears faster. Try and find ways to make it positive and have them experiment and brainstorm.
Right. And I love this one. It's sort of one thing that we have in our lessons, but make a colorful to-do list with stickers and markers listing all the non-digital things you could do each day. And we actually have this in one of our lessons where we call it the bucket list, and we have kids, okay, I've got nothing to do. There's nothing to do. Okay, the minute your kid says that, sit them down, give them a piece of paper, think of 50 things you would do if the world did not have any screens in it. And so they'll brainstorm, 50 things, put that on your refrigerator, colorful markers, whatever. And then when they say, oh my God, there's nothing to do, say, hey, let's check something off your list. So very tangible, something a young kid can understand. It's an action item. It's not, getting mad at them because they're on their screen too much. But I love that activity.
Yeah, I think that's great to brainstorm, and then to take that to the next level, sort of middle school level, you can challenge them to actually keep track of how they're using their time. I always recommend keep a social media diary if social media is your thing, or even just a technology diary. Don't make it a big deal. Just, I was on here, this is why, this is how I felt. Could be a smiley face, could be just emojis. But once you see those patterns, it's very illuminating how you're using your time and how that's affecting your emotions. And starting to make kids aware of that is incredibly powerful.
Right. And that's actually one of the lessons we have for those of you attending today. It's being one of our time lessons from the cyber civics curriculum. And in it, there's a time tracker that gives them a little chart where they can actually track their time on a typical day to see how much of that time is spent using devices. And I've done that lesson like 1,000 times with kids, and they're always shocked, like, wow, did I really spend that much time playing a game? Because, you lose track of time, especially when you're 12 or 13. And so they're shocked and kind of like aghast at how much time they spent doing that stuff. So it's a really eye-opening lesson, especially for middle school.
And that lesson translates really well into the teenage years, because they can take that and then they can think about that. They can reflect upon themselves a little bit. It isn't just like, oh, that's what I did. It's like, why did I do that? What is it that I want to be doing? How is this supporting the things that I want to get done? So that they start to develop an awareness about, well, I wanted to be entertained. Fine. I didn't want to do my homework. Maybe not so fine. So that they start to think about the motivations behind use, which is really the first step in exercising control.
Yeah. And so I want to talk a little bit about the teenagers, the older kids. This one, God, I've been thinking about a lot this week. I did a parent presentation last week, and there was a father there, and a question at the end that he asked was like, how do I manage my teenager's screen time? All he wants to do is be on a screen. I don't know what to do. And my heart went out to him. He was really like just at wit's end. And I thought, this is why you don't wait till they're a teen. You have to do these steps every step of the way so they have their own reason for regulation. I love that, Pam, you focus here on for them to ask how they feel when they're using screens. I think this is really powerful for those teenagers. Don't you agree?
Oh, yes. I mean, because they're just learning about all of these volatile emotions that they're having all over. And so it helps them to contextualize these things. And it's not bad that you want to know what your friends are doing. And it's not bad that, you're comparing yourself to someone else, but it does open the door then for you to have a conversation with kids about, well, what happens when you do that? Why, what's in it for you to compare yourself to this person? What are you getting from it? And have those conversations so that they can start thinking more critically.
Yeah. And so what you've got here as an action, encourage your kids to reflect on their digital use patterns and make conscious efforts to improve. Start a diary where you write down how much you spend online, what you're doing, and how it makes you feel, so you can start seeing those patterns. So That's a really important one. Something we didn't include on the list for teens that works just so well. It's in our lessons in cyber civics too, is to teach them about the persuasive technology tactics that social media companies use to hold on to their attention. This is really powerful to teach teens about because nobody likes to be manipulated or told what to do more than a teenager. And when they realize that it's their apps and their phones that are doing that, they're manipulating them to think about, to grab their attention and making it hard for them to leave because of notifications and constant scrolling stuff and all that. Super powerful for teens to learn that, because all of a sudden they're not mad at mom for taking the phone away. They're mad at Instagram for taking their time away. So really encourage you to talk to your kids about technology.
Well, and you can also challenge teenagers. Do you think you could put down your phone for an hour? I think I can. Can you beat me? Nothing teen likes better than to beat their parents at something.
Lastly, on your handout that you get, there's a link to our tech agreement at CyberWise. Really nice to have that at every age and stage. As we talked at the beginning, Pam said, kids need boundaries. They crave boundaries. Actually, that's just how they work. And you can help create those by having a tech agreement with every child. All right, Pam, number 2, one of my favorite, reputation protector. Can you describe what that is?
Well, reputation protector is really understanding your digital footprint. What's out there, what's being said about you, and what are you putting out there that influences how people see you? To me, this is a critical thinking exercise.
Yeah. And it starts even before this age 7 on our list, because parents and grandparents and friends create digital reputations for our kids from the moment they're born often. And so, a child will have that as part of their reputation when they start going online. And a lot of them are very embarrassed by that stuff. So it's important for adults to think about how they contribute to the reputation of kids. I think I want to start there with that. But Pam, when a child, reaches that elementary school age, how can you start teaching them about this important topic?
Well, I think the first thing is to make sure that they understand the information that they should not share about themselves, because it's dangerous. So you can play games. Should you share this? Should you share that? One of the things, Diana, that I remember a lesson that you used to do was having kids put their ID cards and a bunch of personal stuff in a shoebox and then asking them to set it out on the curb. And they were horrified because of the exposure of those personal things, but they haven't made that link to that exposure online. So any tangible way of helping kids feel that exposure that's out there it can be very effective.
Yeah, I think that's what you have to do at that young age, because they'll be so excited to share things in games and make new friends and tell people stuff. And they don't have those boundaries. They don't have those thinking skills intact. So anything tangible. The other one you have on here is to role play, how to chat respectfully online and what to share when you're making new friends online. So I think to role play that before you put your child on a computer is very important.
Yeah, and we should have an entirely different chat about parenting and sharenting on some other day. So, because that's a huge issue.
It is. And, I see that it's a huge issue in middle schoolers' faces when we're talking about this topic, reputation, and they're like, I didn't even post this stuff. But when I Google my name, I see myself at this birthday party making a silly face when I was 7, and it's so embarrassing. So I wish every parent could hear that, because, we should be respectful of each other, regardless if it's our child or our friend, about what we post before we post it, because it goes back to their digital reputation.
And for teens, if they can start thinking of their online presence as a digital resume, that will be a very helpful thing for them, because that's what it is. There isn't a job interview or a college admissions officer or, the mother of your, son's, romantic partner who isn't searching online to see what's going on with that person. So to think about this as my digital resume, am I presenting myself in the way that I want to a boss, to a college, to grandma, whomever? Once they start seeing through another person's eyes, it can really activate some good critical thinking and some pauses before posting, which is really what you're after, to think before posting.
Yeah, and we didn't put this on here, we should have, but to Google yourself and your friends and family together with your child to see what pops up and to see if it matches the same good person in real life. That's a super powerful lesson. And the cyber civics lesson we give you for this topic is one of our Billboard lessons, where it gives you a little billboard that the kids can fill in to imagine what they want their digital billboard to say to the world. So you can really use that with elementary or middle school kids. So it really starts getting important as the kids get older, teenage years. So Pam, how would you address that with a teenager?
With the reputation or the
Digital reputation.
I think, I mean, I think that the easiest way to do it is to find news stories where somebody's had an unfortunate circumstance that's come to light where they were denied an opportunity. You know, you hear stories about kids not getting to go to college or not getting a job. But as Diana said, having them Google themselves, having them Google some of their friends and see what's out there, they will be shocked, especially if you say, okay, now I want you to pretend you're, you know, the college admissions announcer or the team, you know, the team captain or whatever it is that your child is aspiring to do. Think about it through those eyes so that they can start putting together, well, what is it that I want to say about myself out there? You know, and have them compile a list. I think, you know, we suggest maybe a poster of how to put those things together, but you know, anything, a TikTok channel, an Instagram, have a special topic, something that portrays you as someone of interest and I don't want to say substance because no teen wants to be a person of substance at this point, but where it's presenting them for their best.
Yeah, and I love the last one. Start an Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube channel about a hobby or subject you love. That's such a great thing for kids to do. I just read a news article about somebody who did that regarding high school food lunches or something, and they ended up getting a job because of it. Those are the stories I wish that I would see more of. I know they're out there, but we always hear about the downsides of kids posting the wrong things online. But kid influencers who start really positive things often leads to jobs, or at least in the door or for college, you know, whatever. It's so good for their reputation to use social media in that way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of social impact on kids who are sort of successfully promoting one of these topics, whether they're creating sort of community cohesion or whether they're actually influencing the larger discussion.
Exactly.
You don't have to be old to make a difference.
Yes, exactly. All right, number 3, Kind Digital Connector. Another name that I like because it's really broad. It encompasses a lot of things, but I think kindness online is just so huge. It comes up in so many different ways. So let's talk about what that means, Pam.
I think you're looking at having someone think about the other person, both in terms of developing empathy and how the behaviors they have, netiquette, whatever you want to call it, how to say nice things, how to understand that things get misunderstood online. But it also means having the courage to stand up when you see someone else being abused, when you see someone else being bullying. So it's really a two-sided, you know, being a kind digital connector sometimes means coming to someone's defense and not just saying nice things.
Right. And so some of the actions we have here for the young children, so easy. Create a digital heart poster where you can write down kind messages that you would share online. Share the messages with your friends in real life first and then do it online. I think that's just a really easy way to practice that kindness muscle before you let your kids go online and start, you know, forgetting that there's a real person behind the screen. Another action, make a superhero badge that you can wear when you keep the internet safe by reporting anything inappropriate to an adult. That's huge. So we know kids see inappropriate, mean stuff all the time online. We know that from the research, talking to kids. Often they just don't know what to do because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. And so for your child to know, hey, come to me if you see someone being treated cruelly, and you're not going to get in trouble, but you're going to get the superhero badge or whatever.
Right.
For coming to me with this information because you could be really helping somebody online.
Yeah, that skill actually is something you can continue practicing up through middle school and high school. It's very difficult, especially when you're in middle school and you're worried about the sort of social dynamics, to not want to speak up. And that's where role play is a way that can help a kid know what to say ahead of time. And it's, you know, it's going to be more difficult in the middle school hallway than it is going to be online where you've got some protection. But I think one of the things that works really well is to have a child write a story where they get some psychological safety by creating distance or a comic book or whatever, but so they have a chance to practice that dialogue. And And when you get to the high school level, a nice project would be to say, if you wanted to teach other people this lesson, what would you tell them? How would you design a workshop that would make, your world a socially kinder place, so that you're allowing them to put their ideas and their messaging at the forefront?
Yeah, and the lesson we're giving you that aligns with this is what we call Be Upstanding. And it actually is a practice lesson where kids can learn ways they can stand up to a cyberbully or bullying even offline, that, different ways they can do if they don't have the courage to stand up to the person, or they're afraid that that bullying will come to them as a target. There's other things they can do, and this lesson lets them practice those strategies.
Indeed. Important.
All right, so number
Okay.
4, they're all my favorites. I always say my lessons are like my children. I love them all.
Yeah, well, you're the brains behind all this. I'm just here to explain.
Well, I learned everything I know from you, Pam. So, all right. So, effective researcher, boy, talk about a time that we need this skill more than ever, right? So, what exactly does it encompass, Pam?
Well, to be an effective researcher really means you need to engage critical thinking and not just believe everything that you see or read. It impacts both how you interpret information, but it also impacts how you share information and the way people think about you. So one of the things that we recommend in elementary school is sort of be a detective for a day. Find a news story that doesn't make sense and do some research. Who else is saying that? Can you find some other evidence of that? So that they're having some very hands-on experience in what I think of as triangulating information. And, well, where are your sources? Oh, is it all from social media? Well, is there, how reliable is that going to be? So you can start having these conversations.
And I think also what we didn't really dive into here too, it's a whole nother set of lessons, but just understanding how search works. It's like, that's a whole area of study. When you Google something, what's happening behind the screen, and why is it giving you those results and maybe giving someone else sort of different results? So that's a whole different area. And I think middle school is where you can really go deep on some of these lessons on how to be a good researcher. The one that we're giving you with this lesson is one of our favorites. It shares the 3 questions that the Stanford History Group discovered real researchers ask when they do research online. Who is behind the information? What is the evidence for their claims? And what do other sources say? So that lesson will walk you through that. But there's so much more to research than just doing that. Understanding deep fakes and doing visual literacy lessons so that they can read the images that they're seeing. All of that falls under the same umbrella.
Right. And then when you get up to high school age and college age, you are now taking research and you're compiling it in your own work. So then you have the discussion about not only how do you validate information, but how do you give people credit for the work that they created? How do you cite work properly? What is plagiarism? What is copyright? So that they start to think about ownership. It's a huge issue, especially with AI right now, that who created something. But I think that's giving kids a chance to think about those skills. I teach graduate students. I can't tell you how many of them do not understand the importance of citing other people's work or the implications of plagiarism. Right. So it's a fast track. It's like, chutes and ladders. It's that long ladder right down to starting again.
Yeah. And, when we do a survey at the end of 3 years of cyber civics, we always ask students to tell us what were your favorite lessons. And it's always, always, always copyright, because these kids imagine that they're going to be creative artists one day. They care that the things they create aren't stolen and used by others. So to turn it around that way is a really effective way to teach them about copyright. They care. And, think about it. Artists are not making the kind of income or livelihoods that they could have made before the internet. So that's really cutting into our creative arts. And so we need to understand how important it is to be thoughtful and kind. That goes back to our previous lesson, right, to people who are making things, the time and energy they put into it, and to not use it elsewhere without at least giving credit, if not payment for.
And that kind of links, both the last one and this one linked to, we have a question: what would be a transitional sentence or message to help kids get out of negative dynamics? How can they say no politely? And so I have two ideas for you here. One is, this is where role play can be very helpful. If you can talk with a kid and take them through, well, what's going on? If you were me, what would you tell me? What are some things that we could brainstorm? Because we often do that in our heads. Well, if I say that, well, no, that's not going to get me where I want to go. So that they start to have options. But the other is that when you turn things around like that, when you put someone in a different set of shoes as the advisor rather than the target or someone caught up in the dynamic, it sometimes is much easier for them to see their way clear.
I agree. And, I wanted to say one more thing before we leave the topic of research. Kids today are doing their research on TikTok and YouTube, just so you know.
Just FYI.
And honestly, I kind of went down this rabbit hole years ago, gosh, so long ago, when my daughter was in 8th grade and they were doing presentations, and a girl did her project and was presenting to the community. And the information she was sharing was just wrong. I was like, this isn't even factual. And it turned out, she was not getting it from great sources. So that's the other thing, to just help our kids know, if you're going to get something from TikTok, it's a video that's probably made by another 12-year-old. So chances are that person is not an expert in anything yet. So just to be aware of, where our kids are getting their resources. They're not just always getting it from Google.
Right. Or Wikipedia, which is equally as sketchy. Well, not equally as sketchy as TikTok, but is also problematic.
All right. Smart device user is number 5. This is a really good one because it encompasses a lot. Pam, you can tell us what those things are.
Okay. So the smart device user, to me, has, as Diana says, it covers a lot of ground. One is understanding about your device, right? How to take care of it. And that includes, back to that tech agreement, who pays for it if you break it? I can't tell you how many times my nephews have, lost their phone in the toilet. So it's important to have that clearly stated in the tech agreement so that there aren't misunderstandings. But aside from not leaving your phone in the sun and all of those things, the software inside your phone, keeping it up to date, all of those things, and then staying up to date on new technology, all of that is part of being a smart device user. So I didn't touch on any of the activities. So maybe you want to.
So I love this because it's something that I had not thought about, but just teach your kids the basics of taking care of devices, like not eating while using the device. Like, how easy is that? Have a device cleaning day where you learn to clean your devices safely. I could stand to have one of those days. Teach your kids to use devices in a safe environment. Create a safety poster showing all the ways to keep your devices in good running order. Discuss with your parents what happens if you break or lose something. So remember, we're giving our kids really valuable pieces of property. So to teach them how to use it is really basic for those young kids. And then this same topic, as you move into middle school, you're going to talk more about the basics of cybersecurity, what's safe to share online, what's not. We gave you a lesson called the 3 W's, the questions to ask when kids go online. Who's contacting you? Why are they contacting you? What do they want? So that's a really deep lesson. Responsible downloading and fair use. Pam, do you want to speak to that?
Well, I think that kids don't stop to think that they go, oh, here's a song or here's a movie or something, and I can just download it, without thinking about whether or not that download is going to make problems for their devices. Is it going to bring in malware? Is it bringing in viruses? So understanding sources, I think, is a really important part of that. And now that so many kids have moved, kids use computers when they have to write a paper, but most of their life is on their phone. To be aware that catfishing or someone trying to get your information that used to come only on email now comes in texts. And I can't tell you how many times I'm told that my Bitcoin purchase from Netflix, went through for some large amount of money. Click here if that's not you. Where because a phone is personal and because they own it, it adds credibility to messages that come in on that. And so it's very important that they start to make that distinction. I think that that's one where discussing it with teens, what could happen? What could go wrong?
Yeah.
If you click on one of those.
And I wanted to say, for the teens, We put that catfishing in there, which is so important because the Surgeon General actually issued a warning about that last year because so many kids, specifically teenage boys, being catfished. And what that means is someone creates an identity, tries to be your friend online. They'll try to get money out of you. Sometimes they'll try to get intimate photos out of you that they'll turn around and blackmail you with. It's pretty serious. And what's so sad about it is a lot of times when kids have fallen prey to this, they're so embarrassed that they don't feel comfortable coming to an adult or somebody. So, preempt this by telling your kids that it happens, and to never feel
To
embarrassed.
the best of us.
Best of us, we're fooled online all the time. Like it's crazy and it's going to get worse. So we should be able to talk freely about to anybody when this stuff happens. So those are the big 5. Again, I'm going to review.
Wait, I want me just to add something to the last one, smart device user, which I think is really important, which goes sort of back to the holistic point of view, is that this set of skills are transferable no matter what the device, no matter what the tool. And so that's why digital literacy is so important, because it isn't how to use Facebook or how to use TikTok. It's how to manage your life in this world, because there's going to be something new. I mean, 4 years ago, there was no TikTok, and we were worried about something else. So we want to prepare them going forward. And we don't want them afraid of new technologies. We want them to go look at them and say, well, based on what I know, where could the problems be for me with this technology? Where are the upsides for me with this technology? Because there's benefits and challenges. But what we're trying to do with digital literacy is increase the benefits and decrease the challenges.
And again, like these are just scratching the surface, honestly. They're great umbrella topics, but as you see, as we went through this, there's so much that goes underneath each one. The researcher as an example, I mean, copyright, fair use, how to search the internet, visual literacy, blah, 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 on and on, stereotypes, and we could be here for 3 days, but at the very least, this will give you some action items that you can do with your own kids to start talking about these topics. Again, number 1 was good time manager. Number 2, reputation protector. 3 was kind digital connector. 4, effective researcher. 5, smart device user. When you use your link tomorrow, we have an extra credit. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can just be surprised tomorrow. And then we got one last question. Oh, it went away. Where'd it go?
Oh, that may be the one that I answered. Someone asked, is this going to be recorded? And yes, it will be. You can go to the cyberwise.org website. It'll be there. It'll also be on YouTube, and it'll be on Apple Podcasts and wherever else you listen to podcasts.
And you'll get a link tomorrow with all this information. So before we close out, another moment or two, if you have a question, if you're here with us live, feel free to put a question in the question box. Pam, did you have any last words on the 5 big topics we talked about?
Well, my sort of general takeaway is that media is both positive and negative, and there are no quick fixes. And so we're both very concerned about all of these sort of knee-jerk legislations that are going to either not work or teach your kids wonderful hacking skills, but not prepare them for actually an effective life in the digital landscape. So you don't want to deny the positives, and you do want to give kids these skills, which is what those quick fixes don't do. So digital literacy are life skills. They're transferable online, offline, and that all these skills add up to something much bigger: psychological strengths. They improve self-esteem. They improve self-confidence. They improve self-regulation and self-awareness, which are key in the teenage years to keep them from doing something really stupid. And they grow the resilience, so they're better able to handle challenges and well-being. As we're worried so much about our kids' mental health, there's almost nothing that you can do that would help them more than build up these internal strengths to help them deal with potential anxiety or depression, the sort of what I think of as the psychological long COVID. So it's really a great opportunity, and we need to lean into it.
Amen. So before we leave, I'm right now pasting a link into the chat box to everyone. Pam's excellent article. I really encourage you to read it. Share it with your schools, please. It's so good. Why is digital literacy so often overlooked? I wish I had the answer. I do not. It's crazy that it is. But she has some really excellent research, and you'll also find our action guide in there. So I gave you the link in our webinar chat box. If you're listening to us, you can always find this on the cyberwise.com website. Go to our blog, and the blog again is called Why is Digital Literacy So Often Overlooked? The article is also in Psychology Today if you would prefer to read it there, but you're not going to get the download from them.
No, they don't. Yeah, they don't let me put in links. So
get it from us. All right. And so next month, we are actually going to zone in on one of these topics that we talked about today. We're going to talk about cyberbullying finally, very important. It's Cyberbullying Awareness Month also, so it comes at a good time. The topic is how to protect your child from cyberbullying. So excited. We're going to have Ross Ellis, who is the founder and president of Stomp Out Bullying, huge organization out of New York. She's a good friend. She has done so much work to keep kids safe online. So she will be our special guest next month, Thursday, October 5th, same time, same place. And that information will also be posted on our website tomorrow. So thank you all so much for joining us. I hope this will help you help your kids be safer and wiser online, and look for us next month. All right, Pam, thank you.
right. Thank you, Diana.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.